All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. Hope you're doing well out there. Crazy shit going on in the world. I hope you had a great July 4th. I hope your July 4th was just amazing. I hope you got to see somebody accidentally blow their fingers off with some sort of inflammatory device to celebrate the founding of our genocidal nation state. I hope you got to do it all. Do it all up, you know? I spent many years doing the fireworks. Still got all my fingers. Not all my toes, but I don't want to talk about it. You know, today's not about me. Hope you're doing well out there. Hope you're hanging in there. We've got some crazy stories, some important stories. As most of you know, if you're regular viewers, I try to cover the stuff that is not either is not covered on the mainstream media or is covered completely wrong on the mainstream media. So this does not mean I'm getting every story. And, sometimes I feel the need to reiterate that. I can't get everything. I'm trying to pick the things that either aren't covered or are covered completely wrong. And anyway, but yeah, we got, I'll just list some things that hopefully I'll have time for as much of this as I can. But Hamas is dissolving the government. We'll get into that in a second. Under solutions, we'll talk about how some of the New York elections were not as rigged this time around because of the efforts of people trying to stop the rigging. RT, you can now get if you're in I was about to say the Europe. If you're in the EU, if you're in the Europe, you can now get arrested and put in prison for reposting RT. The place I used to work. And if you don't know, I used to work there. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But so yeah, that's fun, right? That doesn't scream that the EU, like the US, is so unstable and on such loose, rocky, just like a Jenga tower on top of a Jello mold, just rocky, unstable foundation, that the idea that someone might repost just a little tiny video in the corner of the internet, because let's be honest, social media is not going to reward you for posting that shit, but even just that little bit of truth getting out, and I'm not saying RT is all truth, but just that little bit of truth getting out, it's too scary. It's too fuck it all up, so we'll just got to arrest them. Yeah, you can now in the EU, you can get arrested for reposting RT. Talk about more about that in a moment. Also, we got some updates on Israel. Mitch McConnell might be dead. We got a lot coming up. So, there's white supremacists marching through DC right now. And but as I've been doing, I will be bringing some solutions along with all the problems. That's my New Year's resolution, to bring some solutions along. I mean, the solution honestly would be to hear about all these stories and change everything we're doing and change the way we're thinking. So that's like the higher solution, but in a larger sense or a smaller sense, I'm bringing more individual solutions to these conversations than maybe I used to. Okay, so let's start with this from Drop Site News. And please click thumbs up, leave a comment, all that stuff matters. Hamas is dissolving their government. Gaza's government media office announced Monday that its emergency committee has been dissolved. Now, this was part of the agreement to move forward with the so-called peace plan in Gaza. Of course, you and I know that Israel has no intent on following through with all of it, but whatevs. They've dissolved the emergency committee, saying the move is intended to facilitate the transfer of administrative authority to the Palestinian-led National Committee for the Administration of Gaza, NCAG, under Trump's Board of Peace. Now, if you right now are screaming at your screen, his Board of Peace doesn't fucking matter. It's not a Board of Peace. It's he's Board of Peace, and this is another way to genocide Gaza. You are correct. All of that is correct. The office said that it had received full assurance that preparations for the handover had been completed and formally presented to Palestinian factions, clan leaders, and could be spelled KLA. A-N, but C-L-A-N, and a United Nations observer. It added that the only technical and professional staff would remain in their posts to prevent an administrative and technical vacuum, while stressing that all public employees are fully prepared to work under the NCAG. The statement concluded by urging all relevant parties to expedite the immediate entry of the committee so it can assume its responsibilities. Hamas's spokesperson said that a new positive step today to remove the occupation's pretexts, meaning Israel's occupation's pretext, was taken today following the announcement. Hamas has repeatedly stated its willingness to hand over governance to the NCAG since signing the 2025 agreement. So this, in a way, needed to be done if they were going to continue to follow, to move forward on the agreement of October 2025. However, does anyone think Israel's going to follow any of this shit? Has Israel followed any of this shit? Israel kills people every single day in Gaza, executes people every single day. They violate the ceasefire every single day. They promised in the agreement they were going to allow 600 trucks of aid in every day, and the average is like 150 or something. So they haven't followed by any of it. But maybe I'm being too cynical, and maybe this is a step forward. I don't fucking know. I don't know if anyone has that take that this is movement in the right direction for Gazans, but I don't know. The Board of Peace said it has taken note of the announcement, stressing that its assessment will be guided by actions, not promises. In the post on X, the board said any transition must be comprehensive and comply with the roadmap's requirements for governance, security, and political transition. Because Gaza and Hamas are expected to follow the roadmap to a T, while Israel can do whatever the fuck it wants. And Israel, by the way, is supposed to be backing out of Gaza to a certain degree, according to the agreement. Instead, they are actually moving further into Gaza. They now have stolen 70%, I believe it is, close to 70% of Gaza. And the survivors of this genocide are now crammed into 30% of an already crazy, heavily populated area. So, anyway, the Board of Peace reiterated that the guiding principle remains one authority, one law, and one weapon, adding that all weapons must be consolidated under control of the NCAG. Israel and Trump's board have made the entry of the NCAG contingent on the Palestinian acceptance of a 15-point roadmap that appears aimed at disarming the Palestinian resistance and the abandoning of the struggle for Palestinian national liberation. Basically, disarm, give up, and then Israel can complete their ethnic cleansing, and then Trump can put up giant golden hotels that look like erections. That is the goal. That is where they're headed. And, for any of you who need reminding, the Board of Peace, this thing Trump created and made himself king of, and when he's done being president, he's not done being head of the Board of Peace. The bylaws or whatever say that he remains God of the Board of Peace until he dies, essentially. The entire board, if they vote unanimously, could remove him, but it's all of his nutsuckers, for lack of a better word. So they're not going to remove him. And the other thing, in case you didn't notice, is the Board of Peace is just billionaires and Trump sycophants. That's all it is. There is not a single representative outside of nutsuckers and billionaires and billionaire nutsuckers. That's all that Trump put in there. I know that shocks you. I know you're like, what? Trump? That sounds kind of corrupt for him. And I just thought I'd play this clip, just because it's fun. It's only tangentially related, but this is Israel, or representative for Israel, and he's asked about Israel's nuclear weapons because Israel keeps claiming that the reason they need to keep bombing Iran or create war with Iran, and the reason they've assassinated all of Iran's scientists and assassinated their leaders is because Iran's going to get nuclear weapons, right? So in this interview, he's asked why Israel's allowed to have nuclear weapons. but that's a no-no, right? It's a top secret, open secret that Israel has nuclear weapons. Because if they admit it, then they're supposed to be inspected. It's supposed to follow all the international rules, and they're not doing that. So instead, they just keep casually pretending they don't have nuclear weapons. Anyway, watch his response when asked about why Israel's allowed to have nuclear weapons.
You having nuclear weapons and not, say,
Or not.
Iran.
Sorry. All right. I don't actually know. It's weird that it's connecting these two. It's connecting two different tabs and not allowing me to turn on the audio of one of them. I'll try again, and then I might not be able to. All right, let's try now.
First, again, we never admitted to have such weapons, but the very comparison is, I must say, it's very insulting, and I tell you why. We suffered one Holocaust. We listened to our neighbors.
Is it because of the Holocaust that you should be allowed to have nuclear weapons?
You know what? This interview was finished now. Your attitude is so hostile, and your questions are so arrogant. I don't want to.
Is it the case that why should the?
Yeah, so he gets up and walks out after that. It's try and ask a representative of Israel about nuclear weapons, about their nuclear weapons, why they're allowed to have them, and they just end the interview because they can't talk about it. Everyone knows they have nuclear weapons like this. It's such a stupid open secret. And by the way, for those of you regular listeners, watchers of this show, of this podcast, whatever, you should be very impressed. I didn't scream any curse words at Instagram that time. Instagram is a heap of steaming garbage. And yet I didn't say any of that this time. I didn't say that they fucking suck in every way possible, and yet they're like the center of our town square, as they call Twitter and Instagram and stuff. But I didn't say any of that. I'm not saying any of that. I kept it all very nice towards Instagram this time around. All right, one more note on Israel, and this time a company that you should be doing your best to boycott, although many of these companies own everything you've ever used, so it's pretty tough. But a Microsoft employee, as he was leaving Microsoft on his final day at the company, Microsoft worker in Italy has sent out an email to thousands of colleagues informing them of how the corporation operates as the technological backbone of the Gaza Holocaust perpetrated by so-called Israel. The hero, known to the Canary.co, is a great outlet, especially on the topic of Israel. And they're at radindiemedia.com, your place for all important news, radindiemedia.com, completely free to use. The hero, known to the Canary as Nauer, said, quote, "After nearly 2 years as a critical environment technician at a Microsoft Italy data center, I choose to resign. This is because right now Microsoft is massively expanding its European data centers, aka mass surveillance centers, to use Palestine as a laboratory for its experimental digital weaponry. For the past 994 days, Microsoft has powered the genocide of our people in Palestine, and the company's European data centers are fundamental to how Microsoft abets crimes against humanity." So he's really pulling punches there, really keeping it nice, keeping it nice above the waist as he says goodbye to Microsoft. He continued in his letter to thousands of Microsoft employees. On August 6, 2025, reports exposed how Microsoft hosted 11,500 terabytes, which, if you don't know what a terabyte is, just take a gram and then multiply it by 7 milliseconds, and then you'll see that a terabyte is a fuck ton. Yeah, technical. I know it gets pretty technical, and I'm really good with math, so I don't mean to go over your head, but yeah, that's what it is. 11,500 terabytes of intercepted Palestinian phone call data in the Microsoft Netherlands data center. Intercepted. This is surveilling Palestinians, obviously without their permission. Of course not. With additional data stored in the Irish data center amounting to 200 million hours of audio, this trove of mass surveillance data has been described as one of the world's largest and most intrusive collections of surveillance data over a single population group. This data is used by the Israeli military to identify targets for airstrikes, arrests, and blackmail from the entire Palestinian population. So imagine how crucial that is. Microsoft helps monitor them and store the data. The data is then analyzed, and then Israel murders them. That's how it works. And of course, Microsoft's just one of many companies, Palantir, Amazon, all of them, Google. It is also used as training data to build AI targeting programs. These programs invent arbitrary justifications to murder non-combatants, intentionally adding civilian workers to the Israeli military's generated target bank, quote unquote. The programs also facilitate massacres of entire families. Yeah, I've covered that. How they kill entire families intentionally. That's the aim. It's not accidental. Noor went on to highlight Microsoft's pseudo-investigation of the above amounting to a whitewash. He said Microsoft colluded with the terror regime in Tel Aviv to shift the data off Dutch servers and into occupied Palestine. So that's from a good old former employee of Microsoft, letting you know how Microsoft works. In case you were wondering, in case you want a little insight. All right, let's get to this. Is again, I'm trying to maintain my ability to be shocked at these stories, and for the most part, I succeed rather than just go, "Oh, this is how it works." But RT, okay, stood initially for Russia Today, but it is far more than that. I worked for 8 years at RT America. I had a comedy show. RT had kind of two different sides. It had the news and the entertainment side. And the news was really, dictated from above. They were told what stories to cover, et cetera, et cetera. With my show, Redacted Tonight, I did everything I wanted. No one told me what to do. I was and am an American in America covering American news. And people have a hard time believing that or wanting to believe that, but all right, go fuck yourself. It's the truth. I did everything I wanted. I was not censored. It was a crazy amount of freedom. So RT America, killed by U.S. sanctions 4 years ago now, I guess. Jesus. And that's when my show ended as well. But RT International still exists. And now, as of essentially this week, wait, where is it? An EU court of Justice has allowed the criminal prosecution in Germany for reposting RT videos. So not being RT, not working at RT, not taking money from RT. RT wasn't paying these people. They were just reposting on their free websites some RT content. And now they're under arrest. I mean, it is the most, ironically in Germany, it is the most fucking fascist shit. You reposted something. Now you're in prison. Well, I guess the same would go for Facebook, right? If someone reposts something on Facebook, then I guess Zuckerberg should be locked up for reposting RT, right? That's how it should work. Totally. The Court of Justice of the European Union has allowed criminal prosecution of individuals in EU countries who post Russia Today RT videos on open channels and websites. The CJEU ruling in a lawsuit against 3 German citizens for reposting RT videos on open platform reads. And something else I should point out about RT and RT America was a lot of times, not on things about Russia. I almost never, I rarely, all of Redacted Tonight was prior to the invasion of Ukraine, the proxy war in Ukraine. And I was rarely, if ever, even talking about Russia. I'd mention it in bricks and things like that, but that wasn't my go-to topic. It wasn't like, like, I don't consider myself a specialist on Russia. I've never lived in Russia. I don't know Russian, like, and so it just wasn't my topic. And America's the hegemon. Like, America's the one calling the shots. Now you have kind of a quasi-even power stance between America and China, the United States and China in many ways. But anyway, but if you wanted information about America, about the United States, the way the U.S. is behaving, the truth about the way the U.S. is behaving, largely you should go to outlets that are not U.S. corporate media, or entirely you should go to outlets that are not U.S. corporate media. So one of the good places back then, at least, I don't watch RT now, so I don't know, but one of the good places to go for the truth about the United States was RT and RT America. Now, if you want to go to the truth about Britain, don't go to BBC. Don't go to British outlets. If you want to go to the truth about Russia, probably don't go to Russian outlets. I don't know. Again, I don't live there, but probably shouldn't be where you go. It's it all comes down to like media literacy, understanding how these outlets work and function and why they function a certain way. Anyway, here's a quote from the court's judgment. In Germany, 3 persons are facing criminal proceedings for having broadcast on several occasions videos from the channel RT Germany to be specific, on a website accessible to the public free of charge. Across the European Union, operators are not permitted to broadcast the content of that channel because of the restrictive measures adopted against it. So it's illegal, at least in a lot of the EU, maybe all the EU, to repost RT videos. It's like, and if they branch that out to, so this is like owning a website where you put this stuff up. Have they branched that out to like posting it on Twitter? If you retweet an RT video or an RT tweet, is that illegal in the EU? Yeah, so here's this from EU News, also covering the same story. Court of Justice, European Union has clarified. So then they clarified the ban because people were confused as to what it meant. Ban on disseminating content from Russia Today channel also applies to those who operate a website that is freely accessible to the public and funded solely by users' voluntary contributions. The ruling stems from criminal proceedings brought in Germany against 3 individuals accused of repeatedly publishing videos from the RT Germany channel on a freely accessible website. The court answered in the affirmative, clarifying that the concept of an operator encompasses any person responsible directly or indirectly for making prohibited content available, even in the context of an unpaid activity. This classification does not depend on either the scope or the duration of the dissemination. Yeah. And as I said earlier, this shows how pathetically weak the EU is. The EU is now part of maybe has been, but a collapsing empire, the U.S. empire. EU is largely in a vassal position underneath the U.S. empire. And it's like the level of weakness of your system, where a little bit of truth shown to 8 people on a corner of the internet is so much that you have to arrest those who are posting it, is not just should be illegal to do, but it also is just it shows how weak you are. It shows all it takes is a little bit of the truth as to what's going on. Chances are most of what they were posting was probably the truth about U.S. actions, German actions, the truth about the proxy war in Ukraine, how it was created, how it started, probably the truth about Palestine, about the genocide in Gaza. Germany has been incredibly awful and draconian against anyone standing up for Palestine in Germany. It is ironic that Germany is now helping a genocide happen. Huh? Germany's done such a good job of no more genocides, and now let's help a genocide happen. Awesome. That'll look good on our permanent record. It's just this like, doesn't this feel like a snowball effect where it's just like things are getting locked down, like speech, my shows all eliminated, like stuff banned around the world. Journalists like Richard Medhurst are being interrogated and arrested, and their apartments being ripped apart. People like Scott Ritter have had the FBI on their ass. It's just like true. They're trying more and more. The fascists are trying more and more to just lock down, lock down truth, but basically lock out the truth and lock down their bullshit as if it's reality. All right. I got to keep going because I have so many stories I want to get to here. Please remember to click thumbs up, click share, leave a comment. And if you really want to support this show, if you feel like you're getting 33 cents worth, which is what it works out to, 33 cents an episode /column, then I hope you will join up at realleecamp.substack.com. That's realleecamp.substack.com. When you sign up, you get my ebook, Dangerous Ideas. You get my, that's my newest ebook. You get both of my recent stand-up comedy half hours. All of that when you sign up would be amazing and awesome for you to join and support this work. Because as you can see, I don't get those sweet advertiser bucks. I'm not swimming in advertiser money. Corporate America, just they wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole, but I think it's probably have to be longer than that. It would be like a fucking 20-foot pole, and they'd have to have some sort of Purell, I think, on the end of it. Anyway, let's get to how the white helmets are now invading Venezuela. And many of you will understand what just that one sentence, you get it. Some of you may be a little confused as to what the hell that means. The white helmets in Syria and in the Syrian dirty war, the proxy war in Syria, whatever you want to call it, that ultimately it took years, took over a decade, but ultimately brought down the Assad presidency, the Assad government. And now we have done the right thing, done the noble thing, and put in Al-Qaeda, an Al-Qaeda leader as the head of Syria. And everybody in Syria, the ethnic cleansing continues, and pretty much everyone in Syria is in extreme poverty. So we've done the right thing. Anyway, part of that effort, which I'll get to the details here in a minute, but part of that effort was done by an outfit called the White Helmets. White Helmets are beloved by neoliberals. They are just wonderful people who pull babies out of buildings and they save the baby and everything. But if you actually look into what the White Helmets are, their origins, etc., they are a regime change op. And anyway, I'll get to the details right now from Kit Clarenberg. He's always doing awesome work. This is at sheerpost.com, another outlet you will often see at radindymedia.com, free to use. On June 27th, a plane ferrying a specialized team of highly trained search and rescue specialists flew into Venezuela from Damascus, Syria. Dispatched at putative Syrian leader Ahmad al-Sharaz direct order, the 15-strong group is, and then there's a photo of them marching through the airport for those of you listening to the podcast version of this. The 15-strong group is assisting disaster efforts launched by Caracas in response to devastating twin earthquakes. There's still supposedly thousands missing in Caracas. The earthquakes have been really just gut-wrenching there. And Kit Clarenberg doesn't get to this exactly, so I'll throw this in here. This is part of a regime change game plan by the U.S. government and others. It's really shock doctrine. It's basically like you sanction a country into oblivion so that people are poor, struggling, and the government has a lot of trouble operating if you sanction them enough. It's tough to do almost anything. So then you just wait for shocks to the system. It can be debt shocks. It can be earthquakes, literal shocks. It can be fires. It can be floods. It can be fucking mudslides. It can be tsunamis. It could be, there's all kinds of different shocks to a system, to a society. And when those shocks happen, the government, the people have very little ability to deal with it, which then tends to spur people to want extreme change, such as swinging to the far right in Venezuela, as in many countries, wants the United States to invade, wants the United States to bomb them, wants the United States to exploit and extract them. That's what the far right wing in Venezuela is rooting for. And so the goal is those steps. Wait for a shock, sometimes create a shock, but wait for a shock. You've then created sanctions so horrible that the government can't deal with it. You then help force a full regime change. And you might go, we already kidnapped Maduro, completely violating every international law that's ever existed. So wasn't that enough? Well, that's not full regime change. Like Delcy Rodriguez, although she is working with the United States on oil and things, the regime is essentially the same. Okay, to continue. Let's see. Among them coming to Caracas are members of the notorious White Helmets, a bogus humanitarian group constructed by MI6, Britain's CIA. They played a central role in Britain's protracted coup of Bashar al-Assad in Syria. State news agency Sana enthusiastically promoted the White Helmets' arrival, celebrating Syria's first overseas humanitarian search and rescue deployment in modern history. Does anyone else find it funny that the now Al-Qaeda-led Syria is sending helpers? It's really CIA and Al-Qaeda. CIA and Al-Qaeda-led Syria is sending helpers to come help people in places that need help. Here we come to help. We're sending so much help. The expedition reportedly represents a significant step in the country's evolving humanitarian role globally, underscoring its growing capacity to contribute to international disaster response efforts. The deployment is explicitly intended to position Damascus as a contributor to international humanitarian operations. The White Helmets will, quote, work in close coordination with international rescue units in shattered Caracas for up to 10 days, with the possibility of extending the mission, depending on operational requirements. They might be there longer. Oh, that's interesting. An operational requirement of the rescuers may be assisting in the construction of quasi-state structures in Venezuela, a la Syria, ensuring Western powers have the requisite people, organizations, and structures in place locally to take over when the embattled interim government, if and when it collapses. So you have a government that's struggling, you have a place that's sanctioned into a horrible position, and now, what do you know? These helpers are showing up, and they're creating kind of government structures that are just sitting there ready to kick into action when needed. The group was established in 2014 by ARK, a shadowy British intelligence cutout founded by MI6 veteran Alistair Harris. ARK, so remember that name. Even more insidiously, the group and other ARK created quasi-state structures, shored up the dominance of Jabhat al-Nusra, which al-Nusra is a al-Qaeda cutout, which subsequently rebranded as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham before violently taking power in Damascus in December 2024. By providing state-like rescue services, the HTS occupied areas, HTS is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, so the rebranded al-Nusra, which is rebranded al-Qaeda. They love rebranding. They're like fucking Blackwater. Oh, it's Blackwater. It's Z. It's Academy. It's a douchebag with a gun. Oh, that one didn't work so well. Let's go back to Z. Anyway, the extremist faction's credibility as a governance actor with local Syrians was significantly enhanced to the extent HTS became synonymous with opposition to Assad. Leaked documents show British intelligence well knew these activities assisted HTS's growing influence in the years leading to Assad's ouster. Separate leaks show this was Britain's plan all along, with Damascus's post-war quote-unquote recovery providing a beachhead for local MI6 assets to expand into newly liberated territory before all-out regime change. Venezuela's recently arrived plane load of White Helmets could represent a new insidious front in the West's long-running war on Chavismo. Chavismo is, of course, the socialist movement that went across a lot of Latin America. Much of it has been overturned in various areas. The ones that remain, Cuba, Venezuela to some extent, but Cuba, they're besieging in horrible ways. Venezuela, they've obviously already arrested and tortured Maduro. Colombia, they've helped rig that election just last week. Put a right winger in there. Argentina's been undone. Bolivia, like you just go down the list, and they're just picking off all of these pink tide countries, as it's called. Leaked documents trace the White Helmet's inception to a secret British program launched in July 2013. Once constructed, the so-called Syrian Civil Defense enabled direct and public linkages between donor funding and support to the Syrian opposition, while enhancing the legitimacy of local governance actors. The group had strong links to and worked in intimate conjunction with Western-backed extremist groups and foreign-created anti-Assad civil society and media operations. The White Helmets were a perfect conduit for opaquely funneling aid and financial assistance to opposition-occupied territory. So when you're trying to create a coup like this and you're Britain and the United States, it's very tough to just get in the country, right? Like you even if you have your CIA guys pretending to be someone else, it's still really tough to get that many people in to like Syria, because Syria is good enough at protecting their borders that they notice if enough CIA guys are walking around. But if you can have a group like the White Helmets that's there to help, it's local people and and it becomes much easier to funnel money into these people that are then funneling that money to straight up, Al-Qaeda and jihadists, etc. But this just facilitates the whole creation of like an underground society that is in waiting for creating that final coup, that final moment of collapse. Accordingly, the White Helmets were at the forefront of constructing parallel state structures in advance of the day that Assad was finally ousted. And that's why when Assad was finally ousted, it seemed like it happened really fast, right? You have over a decade of our dirty war on him, or maybe it's 2 decades, but a long time of our dirty war, our sanctions, everything. And it seemed that the U.S., yes, the U.S. had stolen a third of the country, but it seemed like they couldn't achieve much more. Assad declared victory in like 2018. And then suddenly, poof, it all goes overnight. And that's because these institutions, parallel state structures, were being built by White Helmets and other U.S., British underground efforts. A leaked file refers to how in April 2015, ARK mobilized its networks of Syrian opposition actors of every stripe, including the White Helmets, to gather information at the British government's request. And so he has more information on the background of the White Helmets, etc. But you can check that out, Sheer Post. In Venezuela, authorities have been enfeebled by decades of U.S.-led economic warfare, leaving them unable to respond vaguely adequately to recent earthquakes. Now, Kit Clarenberg in this is not saying, how rough the government has it or doesn't have it. I think a lot of things you read in like New York Times and stuff is going to be false, so don't believe that. I think to get accurate information about these government institutions in Venezuela, you're going to have to read various independent media or certain media out of Venezuela, but certainly don't trust your mainstream corporate media. Anyway, collapsing the decayed vestiges of Caracas's revolutionary system wouldn't require military action, or they hope they're getting to the point that it wouldn't, but instead an influx of foreign service providers. That's their hope. That's the hope of the U.S. Syria's MI6 installed government has the necessary experience to finish off Delcy Rodriguez's administration via international humanitarian operations. The more you know. So like, I think it's important to see the writing on the wall, connect the dots as to what the U.S. wants to happen now. Now, I think the U.S. sees less urgency right now for collapsing Venezuela, but they still want a brutal right wing, awful dictator in there. Like, they still want a full fledged horrific coup of Venezuela, no doubt. But the fact that they've kidnapped Maduro, shown that they can do that relatively easily, and gotten Delcy Rodriguez, and I don't actually, I mean, from what I've heard, it's not like she's some kind of traitor or anything. She just is under insane pressure where the United States at any moment could just bomb them and do whatever the fuck they want. And the U.S. has been trying to prove that. So she's had to work with them to some extent. It's kind of no other choice. She's also hoping to secure Maduro's freedom at some point. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen. And Maduro's wife also being tortured in the U.S. But so I think the U.S. sees less urgency, because what was urgent was to get Venezuelan oil supply and to cut off Venezuela from from sending oil to China. And Venezuela's main oil partners were China and Iran. And so it seems to me that stuff has mainly been achieved by these U.S. psychopaths. Like, okay, you did it. Congrats. But that doesn't mean they don't want some just brutal, horrific right-winger in that office. Okay, let's get to a couple solutions to problems. And as I've said, when I say solutions, I mean a variety of things. It could be how to achieve things with activism, like those type of. This is a great way to move forward in various activities that can actually create change. It could also be here's how to collapse capitalism. It could be here's how to start a community garden. So broad range of what I mean when I say solutions. Anyway. This is also just a fun video. This is, again, climate defiance, going after, is it Enbridge on this one? Yeah, Enbridge, that horrific company. And, they're involved in all kinds of oil pipelines and all that shit. The worst of the worst. And this is just them harassing, and by harassing, I mean asking legitimate questions of, but it's just them harassing Enbridge employees outside their building. Like, and that type of thing has an impact, because these are real people. And when they understand and they're confronted to their face with the fucking shit that they're involved in, the horror show that they themselves are doing, that can have an impact. You calling your congressperson to be channeled through a voicemail machine? I don't think so. But anyway. Let's watch a few minutes of this. Instagram, love it. Just always working great. God, it's so awesome.
Evil companies on earth. What the fuck are you smiling about? What is funny? Indigenous people's lands being destroyed? What is funny? Generations of children who will not grow up because of climate change? What the fuck is funny?
Hey guys, y'all mind if I join you? I'm Brian. How are you?
Nice to meet you, but we're having a meeting right now.
What do you do with Enbridge?
I'd rather just have our business meeting.
Are you building any pipelines here to Houston?
Please just let us have our meeting.
I can't, because I have a lot of friends who live along many Enbridge pipelines who have suffered in many different ways, from spills to leaks to the potential contamination of their water.
I know that you're responsible for building multiple pipelines through indigenous lands. What's funny? What are you walking away from? Line 3, Line 5, the Rio Grande pipeline? How many indigenous ancestral lands is your company responsible for destroying?
And you also notice that they don't try to argue with them, because there is no argument. The argument would have to be, no, you don't have friends who've suffered from our leaks, when they know like that of course that's not true. Or their argument would have to be, it's fine that your friends have suffered. It's fine that we're killing these people. Listen, you're acting like it's a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's awesome. Like, there is no argument. The strategy they're going to use with people who are not the ones confronting them right there is going to be to tell them that this stuff isn't happening. But you can tell, like the last guy was like, I know people who are on lands where pipelines have gone through and now their tap water's on fire. Like, I know those people. So you can't say, what do you know? It's not happening. What?
How many millions of gallons of oil have been spilled because of Enbridge?
Tell me more. Do you like what you do? And do you have any comments for the communities who live along Line 5, Line 6? No? Why are you here if not to engage in these conversations?
You're Tyler, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Michael. Yes, Enbridge. How do you feel?
Great.
How do you live with yourself? How is your conscience holding up?
And I'm just here because I'm concerned about the negative impacts that obviously have happened in indigenous communities of Canada and here in Houston.
There are thousands of people who've been displaced from Michigan, from ancestral lands, from reservations because of Enbridge. This country is built on the genocide of over 100 million indigenous peoples. You work for a company that is directly responsible for continuing that genocide.
And I know that there's work to develop more pipelines in South Texas.
But you don't like pipelines?
I don't like when they go through my neighborhood, and I don't think that they're necessary at this point.
Do you have a car?
Do you breathe clean air?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, we need it, right? That's what I care about. Clean water.
I love that. I love the response. Do you need, because he was trying to, the guy was trying to do the argument of, do you have a car? Oh, you're part of the problem, right? And he said, do you breathe clean air? And the guy goes, yeah, I do. And he goes, oh, so you need it. You need clean air. And of course, the do you drive a car argument is ridiculous in two regards. One is that's like, it's like there's a massive forest fire that's burned down an entire state, and you're like, do you smoke? You're smoking a cigarette, so you're part of the fire, right? I see a little bit of fire on the end of that cigarette, so yeah, you're fire as well. It's like such a tiny amount compared to the pipelines, compared to the infrastructure, but outside of that, that's ignoring the structural requirements. The United States has carefully and structurally and intentionally created a gas guzzling system of transportation. Electric cars started in the early 1900s. You can find photos of electric cars. They were all destroyed. Like there were good, electric trolley car systems. I didn't even know. I grew up mostly in Richmond, Virginia. I didn't even know till a few years ago, Richmond, Virginia had one of the earliest electric trolley car systems. But all of this was destroyed, gutted, and ripped out because gas was the future. Not just because it enabled people to go where they want, whenever they wanted, but because gas, big oil, was very powerful even back then. And then, of course, you have the petrodollar. So then the entire U.S. System is seated on top of, we have to keep using fossil fuels at every moment as much as possible. So the idea of oh, well, you're part of the problem because you use a car. No, this system has made it so that most people have to use cars. And then, of course, we just don't have good transportation, public transportation to begin with. Even outside of electric systems, you go to a lot of European cities and you can get everywhere without a car, because the city has decided to put in the transportation to allow you to do that. But we have not. The United States is not. Largely, there are some areas that are a little bit better, but and so yeah, you put people. It's like, do you use capitalism? It's like, well, I'm in a system that is a capitalist system. So in order to exist, I have to use the thing. That doesn't mean I think it's right. That doesn't mean I think it won't kill us. It absolutely will, because something that grows forever kills the host. That's how that ends. Anyway, I love the people that get in people's faces and really take it to them about the reality of what they do for a living, the impact it's having. And no, it's not going to work every time, but if it makes a few of these people quit their job or think twice or what have you, fucking yeah, do it. It also, the other thing is, what do I do for my career? Is trying to make people aware of all these different things. These type of videos have far more effect in making people aware of this shit than calling your congressperson. So there's that implication as well. Okay, here's our other small solution. Small solution. Small solution article topic that I wanted to get to, which is I'm not a big electoral person. You know this about me. I think electoralism can have an impact statewide and locally more so. I think locally you can have a big impact. I mean, you go to your fucking town council, you probably have the biggest impact. You'll be one of 30 people there. And if you actually care, you can really achieve things. So it's not all electoralism. I think on the federal level, it's been pretty captured. It doesn't mean like go vote for Trump or whatever shit stain is up for election, but it's been captured, and it can be bought out. Anyway, that being said, I do like the truth, and I still want a legitimate election system. We do not have that. I'm not going to go through every way it's stolen, rigged. There's a million of them. Computer voting machines are completely unaccountable. Every election can be bought out. We just saw that with Thomas Massie. I'm not a Massie fan, but Massie was good on Israel, and that's why they bought out his election. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars, and they got rid of him. That is how it works all of the time, every time. So one of the solutions is to actually hold these elections somewhat accountable. It's not a solution to the money problem, but this is a solution to the some of the rigged voting machines, etc. problem. And one of the organizations that's been doing this for years and years, and I've interviewed her on multiple occasions especially back 2016 when Bernie was robbed, when that election was rigged. Lulu Freisdat with Smart Elections. The name of the group is Smart Elections. And anyway, they had an interesting thing to say about the three progressives that just won in New York, three anti-Israel candidates, three pro-Palestine candidates, all won in New York. And she's got an interesting point about those three elections. She says, I guess it's Lulu writing this, Smart Elections, either way. Last Tuesday, progressives swept three races in the New York primary in an election that reverberated around the country. She says, we believe our observations, our data collection, and our legal actions contributed to the elections being more fair this year and are one reason that the three challengers were able to win. Smart Elections has been doing election observation in New York since 2021. In 2021, the primary race that gave Eric Adams, the shit mayor who former police chief or head of police, whatever he was, I don't know, former top of the police, the NYPD, corrupt, awful mayor. Anyway, the primary race that gave Eric Adams the nomination to become New York's mayor, we found a polling location with 698 more ballots than voters who voted. And they actually show the form. There were 1,178 total ballots scanned, and there are 480 total voters in that precinct. That's a difference of 698. 698 extra votes went to Eric, I think mostly to Eric Adams. Anyway, and so she's actually, for those of you listening to the podcast, she actually shows the paperwork. She's not just saying these things. She's showing the actual tallies with photos of the paperwork. So they go about documenting a bunch of these things. I'm not going to go through them all, but a bunch of the problems with the audits, a lot of the audits, and I used to cover this back on Redacted Tonight, especially around 2016. You're supposed to be legally allowed to view the audits, and lots of times they either cover this shit up or the audits are wrong, and nobody actually bothers to oversee it or to get involved with it. Thank you, that Freedom Guy, for supporting the show, throwing in a super chat. Really appreciate that. That Freedom Guy says, I would drive anywhere to attend a No Blood for Oil protest. Thank you for supporting this show as well. In one district in the 2023 audit, there was a race that had a different count on every system. In this district, Joanne Quinones received 31 votes on the election day scanners, 32 votes on the audit scanners, 33 votes on the hand count. These discrepancies are just a representative, right? 31 votes versus 33, not that big a deal, but it's representative of how these things are off every time. And the audits prove that the votes are wrong. Because only a small fraction of the ballots are actually audited, if there are discrepancies in some races, there could be more discrepancies and much larger discrepancies in other races. In the 2025 audit, the board acknowledged hundreds of pages of discrepancies. So her point is that when they audit, they take like 1/100th of the ballots, right? And you count those and you see if those line up with the scanners. You like physically look at them and you go, oh, that count was the same as the scanners. So they take this 1/100th here and it's all wrong. It's the scanners has a different number from the hand count, from like, and basically most of the time, no one bothers to watch these audits and they just go, close enough. But that type of shit is representative of how wrong these machines are. And they're not, most of the time, they're not accidentally wrong. Most of the time someone digs into it, there is a software design to rig these things. Now, unfortunately, Donald Trump, I've been talking about machines being garbage, black box machines being garbage for 15 years now, at least. And Donald Trump picked up the issue a few years ago. And now if you say the voting machines are garbage or rigged in one way or another, people go, oh, that's a Trump talking point. And it's like, he stole it. He stole that talking point. These machines are often rigged for Republicans. It's not, he wants you to believe they're rigged by Democrats. They're rigged in multiple ways. It depends on the area, the state, the city, the company. In June 2024, we observed a race with gross irregularities, and we filed a lawsuit. We documented more ballots cast than voters who voted. There were 1,355 voters who signed in at the precinct. There were 1,371 ballots cast, 16 more than voters. There are never supposed to be more ballots than voters. It indicates something went wrong. And you'd think a bunch of people would go, let's figure out what went wrong. We documented evidence that poll workers accepted cash bribes in order to influence voters. We documented a lack of seals and seal logs to the point where the chain of custody of the ballots was meaningless. Dude, and the amount of seals and seal logs. So in order to keep chain of evidence, right? Part of what they do is they seal these ballots in a box, and then if the seal is broken, it means there's been tampering and the chain of evidence is broken. And anyway, it should be a big deal. Like these are supposed to be legal documents, very sacrosanct legal documents. And they documented, Smart Elections documented that there were no seal logs for the ballots, whether the seals were accurate or broken or whatever. 0% had the seal logs they were supposed to. 66% of seals were missing from election day ballots chosen for the audit. 66% didn't have the seals they were supposed to have. And no seals logs were checked, and they're supposed to all be checked. So 0% seal logs were checked, 0% seal logs for ballots, and 66% had seals missing. Much like the Washington, D.C. Zoo several years ago during the Great Seal Escape of 2014. I made that up if anyone's Googling that right now. Great Seal Escape. I have to hear about this. While we were unable to, the Smart Election says, while we were unable to get a resolution in the 2024 election, we believe that our work had an impact. And here's why I'm saying this is part of the solution, is that they were not able to overturn any of those elections. They weren't able to get the New York Electoral Board to say, oh, we rigged the election. They weren't able to get any of that. By the way, back in 2016, after Bernie was robbed, there was some part or the New York Elections Board, I can't remember whether it was an area or the board as of itself, had to admit that they threw out like thousands of likely Bernie voters. Like they had to admit that they had essentially rigged it or tried to rig it in one way or another in court. But it happened like a year after the election, so no one cared anymore. But anyway, while we were unable to get a resolution in 2024, we believe that our work had an impact. And so she's saying that quite likely in these 3 precincts where you ended up with pro-Palestine, anti-Israel candidates winning in New York, it's quite likely that you got more legitimate votes because these elections, which, by the way, like a primary in a on a non-presidential election year, like the number of voters are far smaller, and yet you probably had a far more legitimate election because the people that would normally rig these things know they're being watched. They know the audits are being watched. They know the numbers, the incorrect numbers in the audits are being documented. There have been lawsuits. Smart Elections has brought lawsuits against these people to get the information. And it is a whole different world on trying to rig these things when they're being watched. And so Lulu Freistat and Smart Elections are saying it's quite possible that if they weren't pressuring these people about these numbers, you would not have had those 3 anti-Israel or Israel critics, to say it politely, progressives winning those elections. So yet another small victory, small solution. Let's see. I am wrapping up soon in this live stream, but couple of quick things. Additional sentences on the Prairie Land defendants. We already covered extensively the Prairie Land case, and that they were, one guy was sentenced to 30 years in prison for moving a box of magazines because first of all, they're claiming they're all Antifa. There's some big Antifa conspiracy, which is not true. In fact, I think almost all of them said they never even used the term Antifa. They never said they're part of Antifa, any of it. But that aside, they're acting like it's some big criminal conspiracy. And so this guy got 30 years for moving a box of magazines. Others got a crazy amount of time for similar actions or small actions, lighting fireworks outside of an ICE facility, tiny nothing actions, which are not even supposed to be illegal. These people are getting decades in prison. More people now connected to this are being locked up and sentenced. This is from prairielanddefendants.com. So if you want more information, prairielanddefendants.com. Additional federal Prairie Land defendants, including those who took the plea deal, sentenced today to prison terms ranging from 22 months to 50 years. So even defendants who had no previous criminal history received the maximum possible sentence. The seven defendants sentenced today include Prairie Land trial defendant. And anyway, they give all their names, which I'm not going to list both because it would take too long and because I'm going to mispronounce all of them in like offensive ways. So, so if you want to learn more about that, please go to prairielanddefendants.com. Obviously, these will be appealed. Jesus Christ, I hope that they fucking get far shorter sentences. It's just horrific. It's just sad what this country's fucking becoming. Like, it's so fascist, this shit. And anyway, I wanted to bring you that update. I mentioned at the top of the show, I have a new Substack out about how Mitch McConnell might be dead and about how it doesn't matter at all. And the more important thing than Mitch McConnell might be dead is that it doesn't matter at all. And here's just a snippet of it. I truly don't give a shit whether, and the reason I'm saying he might be dead is because he went into cardiac arrest like weeks ago and he's in a hospital and no one hears from him and there's no information and no one knows anything. And you've seen that he's short-circuiting all the time anyway. Like, he's nearly brain dead anyway. But here's a snippet from the article. I truly don't give a shit whether a racist, old, sad, bitter man is alive or dead. Neither does most of America. What matters slightly more is what this says about the United States Congress. Clearly, it's borderline meaningless. Important members can be in a vegetative state and nothing changes in the world or the functionality of that institution. There's perhaps no better example of how worthless and limp-dicked this major governmental body has become. The U.S. president now has near dictatorial power. Congress rarely passes anything other than massive multi-pass bills packed with everything from the $1.5 trillion Pentagon budget of death to whether a USPS postage stamp of Hygieia, goddess of health, can show nipple. And anything Congress does pass always, and I mean always, aligns with corporate interests. So they're essentially a rubber stamp for America's great corporate death spiral. Does anyone think Congress can't rubber stamp our grim waltz off the cliff without Mitch McConnell or any other congressperson? No, they legitimately don't matter. Anyway, there's a lot more. And there's other, by the way, there's other Congress people like Mitch McConnell who have missed like months recently, and no one knows what happened to them. Representative Frederica Wilson in Florida disappeared April 17th, missed 40 votes. Representative Tom Keene in New Jersey missed 4 months and only no one knew why, 140 votes. And he only showed back up recently, and he said it was due to depression. But okay, yeah, depression sucks. You still have to tell people why you're fucking not there. But they don't matter. That's my point. They don't matter. And here's my last thing. Last little note, also over on my Substack, which is free to read. However, I really hope you will sign up and support my show at the cost of 1 beer a month. But I also put up a little in honor of July 4th and Donald Trump's speeches. Donald Trump's wonderful speeches he's given recently. He gave one in front of Mount Rushmore. And the photo you're seeing of Mount Rushmore is real, meaning it looks like the founding fathers or these cultural icons are sobbing because of the water stains. It looks that way. And it's appropriate. It's very appropriate for Donald Trump giving a speech in front of it. I'll go ahead and read part of this. So we've just seen the grand July 4th festivities on the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States of America. No one who's a regular viewer of the USA reality shit show will be surprised. That it involved a mini dictator, billionaire, narcissist, sociopath talking about how awesome he is while standing in front of Mount Rushmore. It was a highly appropriate location for Trump's grotesque speech, considering Mount Rushmore is white faces violently carved into one of the holiest sites of the Lakota tribe after the Native Americans had their land stolen and their people genocided by those same white people. It's also fitting that the water stains make it look like they're sobbing, either due to their guilt, the founding fathers' guilt over committing genocide and enslaving humans, or due to their horror at what the U.S. has become over the past 100 years. But that's not actually what I talk about in the below segment. And then there's a link to my July 4th discussion about the real history of the United States, the real founding of the United States. I did that on the last live stream, but this has been clipped out, so you can just watch that. All of that, free to read, free to go watch at realecamp.substack.com. I'm going to wrap up the show here. This is all also a podcast. If you're on long drives and you want to listen to this instead, don't have time to watch it all, it's at the Lee Camp Show on Spotify, or it's called Moment of Clarity on other platforms because I was banned on Spotify initially. I also have the podcast Common Censored and the podcast Government Secrets. And yeah, just again, other people make a fucking $1 million from corporate sponsorships and shit when they do this type of content, this type of YouTube commentary. I get none of that, both because I say no to a lot of not a lot, but there's a certain number of corporate sponsorships, and I've said no to all of them because they're not things I can endorse or get behind or support. But then really, the reason there aren't more offers is because I tell the truth. I tell you the truth about the empire. I tell you the truth about capitalism. I tell you the truth about Israel, and therefore I am banned, suppressed, and shadow banned. So I really hope that you see fit to become a member. reallycamp.substack.com or patreon.com/leecamp. Or my locals page. Great community over on locals. The people on locals are so wonderful to hang out with, chat with. You can post your own stuff over there on my community as well. And that's leecamp.net will take you straight to the locals page. Okay. I will see you Wednesday. I believe it's Government Secrets Day. So I will see you Wednesday for Government Secrets. Yeah, pretty sure I have that right. And keep fighting.